Hello, product people. Welcome to the Product for Product podcast, hosted by Matt Green, data advocate and product manager, and Moshe product leader and author. Our goal is to serve the product community by helping you find products that can help make your work in product management easier. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Product for Product podcast.
Welcome back. On today's episode, Moshe and I will be kicking off our series on async communication, which can take various forms from chat tools to videos. Product managers often need to bring in many people to build products, and often async communication is needed to accomplish this. So looking forward to the conversation. Let's hop in. How you doing, Moshe?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing wonderful. We're now into March and just really excited for the spring. I know you got some snow up there, so I bet you're even more excited when spring comes.
Oh my God. It feels like winter start here in March.
Exactly.
These days, we were just hit by the biggest storm of the year so far.
Better late than never.
So in the past, it would be like once February, we were past February, we feel like, okay, winter is almost over. Mm-hmm. Now with global warming, it feels like, oh no, March is here.
Yep. Yeah, it's you're like March has finally arrived and the snow's come with it. And down here in the South, the weather's been extremely nice, overly warm, and all the flowers are blooming and trees are blooming, and we're like a month ahead of schedule.
So I hope wherever you are, our dear listeners, you have good weather, you're staying warm or staying cold or whatever it is that you like to stay.
Wherever you are. Yep. And
safe. That's the most important thing.
Exactly.
So today we're talking about, or we're starting a new series about async communication. That's exciting.
Yep.
It's actually really interesting because this is one of those tools that it is not just for product managers. It's like everyone in the company really should be able to use these tools.
Yeah.
And probably is using one or some of those tools. But so like what's the point to make this to talk about it for product managers, right? But I think that it's really important because as product managers we are kind of in the middle of everything. Mm-hmm. We have lots of people we have to talk with, and we have to research what they do and how they do it, communicate what we're doing with everyone, communicate throughout the entire process. Then in the go-to-market, launch a product, and there is a lot of people to let you know about it and stuff like that.
Right.
And synchronous communication doesn't always work, or it's not always available to some of us because of the way that a lot of people are working these days. And even before COVID, there were still problems in organizations on how to communicate product information. Mm-hmm. So how to communicate what is it that we're building, how to communicate what is it, that in scope, out of scope, the progress, how to communicate it to different people, et cetera, et cetera. And with synchronous communication, you don't want to be in meetings all day long. I've heard these complaints not just during COVID. I heard it like my entire career that people complain about being in meetings for too long. So you need to be able to document things and etc. Mm-hmm. And async communication can be a great way to, if you do it right, or if you put the effort in it, could be a great way for people to learn after the fact and to have it for prosperity, right?
Right.
So
that's right.
New people are coming to the team, send them to some of these places to learn about, what you're doing. You want to look back and what happened in different situations, look back into the history of what happened. Yep. There could be a lot of usages for this data. So even if you're not like just sitting and writing documents, because we know documents, especially in agility, it's less important than building the product. Mm-hmm. It's still important, right?
Right.
But it doesn't need to be in the form of a formal document or a formal user guide or whatever. It could be in many other forms.
Right.
And that's where async communication tools come into the picture, because they can really help.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And, thinking about using async and having all the different meetings, and, if you think about meetings, they are syncs. I mean, you're coming in, you're meeting whoever's on the call, talking about a topic. And I like to use async communication if I'm able to prep those people prior to the call and give them information async. Say, hey, this is what we're going to be talking about. And so you can actually shorten some of those meetings and make those meetings more meaningful, because you don't have to do all that pre-legwork when you start the call. Like, hey, let's set it all up. You can kind of prep people for it. And then when you do talk to them in a sync way, then everyone's up to speed already. So you can be more productive. So I think I like that about async.
It's interesting, that point that you raised, because different people also consume information in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about, async communication tools, we might think about, tools like Slack or MS Teams, but there are other ways to communicate information. Some people are better at visual aids.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are better at reading things. Some people want a lot of data. Some people will want less data.
Yeah.
Some people want to see a running thing. And other people want to see tables with lots of numbers in them.
Right.
So it depends really what you're trying to communicate. There might be different ways to do that.
Knowing your audience, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
But I also I put under the umbrella of async communication tools like, we talked about boards for work, for delivering the work. So the Jira, the other boards that we talked about, all the tickets that we write in there, we could use them as a async communication tool. Because if we put enough information in there, so we don't just say what is it that we need to build, but we also say why we want to build it. And we say, when we put a story, we write all the acceptance criteria, and we put the time to write them properly. And we put images in there for the wireframes or for designs or for a prototype. And then when the comments that people are put in, if we make sure we update the story properly rather than just keep it in the comments, because sometimes it's very hard to follow comments and understand what was the end result of that.
Mm-hmm.
I consider that also an async communication tool, because if everyone using the same tool and everyone know this is where they can find the information, they don't need to ask a question.
Right.
I kind of compare it to support, customer support. Mm-hmm. Because when we build a product and there is customer support, and we build these knowledge-based articles, and we build videos, and we build a lot of things in there, and we make sure that they are kept up to date on a regular basis. And the why behind it is so users will first look there, find the answers, and only if they cannot find the answers, then they will bother our customer support. So I see it in the same way. Let's first put the information in all of these tools that we have. Let's make sure people know that they can first search for this information over there. And if they find it over there, they don't have to waste time chasing this information.
Yeah, that's a great example. And really, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking of all the different applications or all the different instances where we're doing that on a day-to-day basis. Providing information at one point and then someone consuming it at a different point, and then how important that is to our day-to-day. And I don't know if everybody's thinking about it that way. Like, they're not thinking about all the different ways they're doing that and all the different tools that are helping them accomplish that. Mm-hmm. So I think that's part of like what's interesting about this is, yes, everyone's acting in async, but they're using all these different tools from Jira, from Slack or Teams, from Loom and video recording to do it.
Yeah.
But just not thinking about it holistically. So I think that's really
exactly. And that's the point. I think the most important point, to think about it holistically. And when you think about it that way, you start also thinking about what is the source of truth. Where should I look first to find that information? But also, is that source of truth being updated on an ongoing basis? Because if it's not, and there is all of these silos of source of truth, or it's in other places, then you're losing that source of truth, right?
Yes.
So if, for example, your ticketing system is your boards for developing work is your source of truth. And we're picking on Jira all the time only because it's kind of rolling off our tongues, but it could be any other things like, we talked about others like ADO, we talked about, I can't remember the other names, but we talked about others.
Yeah.
So what is, is if that is the source of truth, is it kept up to date? Right. Do you, and for one example for that, in the definition of done for stories, I always put, as a product manager, that the story is up to date when we finish it. Meaning that it's not reflecting how the beginning of the work was, but the story reflects what we ended up doing. And in most cases, it should be the same. Because when you start the work, you want to do it after you already groomed it with the team and made sure that they understand everything and all the points are listed over there. But things happen during the development, and if you decided to take something out of scope, or you added some scope, or whatever it was, to make sure that the story is up to date and reflects what was done. So later on, if I don't remember or someone else want to look at it, a year after or whatever it is, they find the story, they can look at it and say, oh, okay, this is what we did. So to me, that is an async tool. Now, we're probably not going to go over these tools again in this series. So the series will cover more kind of like traditional communication tools, like the Zoom and Microsoft Teams. But I think it's important to mention these things, because I've seen companies not paying attention to these things again and again. And as the product manager, I took on myself to change that and to make sure that it is documented in the right way, at least in the stories. Because then there is always the questions about, okay, so what we did over here, how do we develop these things? Right. A year after, 2 years after, whatever, right?
You're closing the loop, right?
You're closing the loop. Exactly.
Yep.
And there is always new product managers coming onto the team. They may need to learn about this. And if that could be another source for them to learn about it, then why not?
Going back to that product ops call we had recently, just how important that is too, because as you mentioned, like, what is the source of truth? And if you're not conscious of the way your company is, or product managers are being async, you run the risk of like, there's multiple sources of truth. You run the risk of like documents being everywhere, information being everywhere, spread out, and stuff will get out of date. We all know that, Things change, like you're just saying. And before you know it, someone new coming in or a customer coming in to a help doc or something like that, they're going to get old information because maybe that's not being updated. So I think something like that where product ops can come in. And so the team is clear on like, hey, this is where we're documenting this async information, and everybody knows where to go for it. So I think that's a really important piece of this too.
Yeah. Product ops definitely have a big role in that. But if you don't have product ops,
which we talked about,
it will actually, in most cases, it will fall kind of flat between the chairs, whichever way you want to put it, because companies will think it's obvious, like, oh yeah, we use Slack to communicate, and oh yeah, we use email, and oh yeah, we use this and whatever. But everyone in the organization will use it in a bit different ways.
Right.
And people in the organization, depends on their past experience, will have some tools they're comfortable with and some tools they're not comfortable with, and some ways to work. So I worked with people that the only way they communicated in 2023 is, I didn't work with them in 2023, so maybe I should say up to 2022, but up to really recently. Recently, the only way they communicate asynchronously with people with emails,
right?
And that drove me crazy, because emails, yes, there is a place for emails, but there are so many other tools these days that you can communicate with people that are much more efficient, faster, collaborative,
transparent,
whatever, right?
Yep.
And also other people are on much more than on their email, that it kind of like join the 20th century, 21st century. What's going on here?
Right, exactly.
That was my idea reaction, but really the problem was that a lot of the information that they provided was in those emails,
right?
And the emails are not accessible by other people that don't get them. The emails are not collaborative. There is all of this chain of information in them. They're not a source of truth. You cannot go back to them. There is so many things that they're not, that it makes them a very bad option for that.
But like you're saying, there's people that are just used to it, and that's what they've
done
always.
I remember back in when was it? About 10 years ago, I switched to another company, and they were switching from Microsoft Outlook to Google Mail, and there was this. Wasn't a big company, but more than 150 people, and there was a core group of people that were so trying to protect their Outlook, and they were so against it. They took them months and months and months to convert them to Gmail.
Yeah.
Now I'm just talking about Gmail, like email specifically.
Yeah.
But with Gmail came a lot of other things that at the time wasn't really. There was no Office 365, or maybe it was in its early phases, so that was not an option. All of those things. There is no MS Teams. All of those things that didn't exist, and Google was much ahead of that on collaboration and stuff like that.
They may have had chat or whatever they called it at the time.
They might have
that. It probably doesn't exist anymore, but it probably.
I remember that the development team I was on, we used the Atlassian product. I can't remember what it's called. Atlassian has their own chat.
Oh, they do.
Yeah,
they do.
I can't remember the name, but we used that, and it was really kind of like not great. It wasn't that amazing or anything. I don't think Slack existed back then, or maybe it was just in its very, very infancy. But hey, I just show my age, right?
Yeah. No, but it's so true though. Many companies I've worked in where email, even though we had something like Teams, the orgs in the company, especially bigger companies that have been around in different like areas, whether it be finance, accounting, and these kind of areas that are very traditional when it comes to email,
right.
They were very slow to adjust to Teams and getting to communicate on Teams. So some people would, especially within the product and IT space, but like getting business stakeholders to switch over to Teams was really hard. And so winning hearts and minds and trying to like show the value of that.
Exactly.
But it's a culture thing, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah. One of the things I feel that we are in a great position as product managers is, at least me, and I've seen many other product managers, we're very curious about products because we want to learn how they work and stuff like that. So we're not afraid to try new products.
Right.
And because of that, we're also in a position to look for other products and try them and try their free trial and, be in this product-led type of growth, helping all of these products to grow. But we are in that position to introduce it to other people in the organization and show them the value of that.
Yep, that's right. Evangelize it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So another example that I had to introduce to people is collaboration on documents. Like, this day and age, you won't believe that some people don't use that because it's so, simple to take a Word file in Office 365 or a Google document and just share it between everyone that work on it and comment on it or suggest changes or whatever, and build it collaboratively. And this is really an async communication way to do things. Because instead of being in a team, in a meeting, and work on it together in a meeting, everyone work on it on their own time. And you add, so it doesn't need to be, you don't need to be on a Zoom and everyone see what you change to be collaborative. You can do it in different times. And many tools these days have those comments, and you can add a person to let them know that you make a change and stuff like that. And this paradigm is growing more and more. Today, it's pretty obvious. But again, up to 2022, I worked with people that they will change a document on their desktop, upload it into an email, and send it to me for my review and changes. And I'm like, what's the point?
That's
Now
right.
you have all of this. Yeah, you have to deal with what I had to deal with 20 years ago, that I had versions of the same documents from everyone. And then I have to figure out which one is the last version and how do I merge all of them and all of that stuff.
Right.
With collaborative tools, it's just, you don't have to deal with this anymore.
Yeah.
The latest and greatest is there.
Right.
And you have history inside the document to show who changed what. And you can always revert to an older version. And if you need to send it outside to a client, you can always export it and get your PDF or your document file, even from Google Drive.
Yeah.
So I mean,
that's it.
Again, grow up and, come to the 21st century.
A lot of things are built off Excel. Somebody would have an Excel workbook and they would send it to you via email through an async way, but it didn't allow you to you'd have to send it back and forth. And then you'd have a copy of it. You'd have a copy of the Excel workbook. And then there'd be 5 different copies of it. And then your source of truth is which one do we use?
5 is the good place. I've seen situations that are so deep that no one knew what's going on.
Yeah, no one knew which one. And then, but you have something like SharePoint, where you can upload a file to a SharePoint site, and then everybody can collaborate on it. And everybody knows that Excel workbook is the workbook to use. Very collaborative. So that stuff's very cool.
Yeah, and even for people that don't like Microsoft or don't like Google, and I know some people are really they just I would use the word hate, but they just,
I've worked on both sides of it. So
So even for those people, you don't like Google, fine, work with Microsoft, but do all of us a favor, work with 365, work with the document that is shared with everyone, and don't download the file to send with us. Just collaborate online, right? They are talking also these days about moving to 4 days work.
I've seen some buzz about that.
Without even doing more collaboration, I don't think this will be successful. Async collaboration.
Yeah.
So I think this could be one of the criteria for success, that your company actually knows how to do that.
Right.
So collaboration is really important, and collaborative tools inside your product, it's really important. So this is not just limited to a Google document or a Microsoft Word or to a spreadsheet. It's also in your design systems, when you have collaborative way to put comments and other people can review the comments and on the spot and stuff like that. It could be other things. You mentioned earlier also Loom, which is another great. Loom. Yeah, it's another great example of an async tool to create. For those who don't know what Loom is, you create videos of your screen when you show a demo of something or whatever it is, and you have a way to put your own face in it in a little circle or something like that. So it's actually a very simple thing, and then you can share it with people through their platform.
Yep. I would share it on Jira. So I would record a bug or something in the application. Link. Yeah. I'd share it in a Jira ticket.
Yeah.
And then developers would know right away what it looks like.
I canceled in the past meetings because I was able to, instead of give a demo for an hour, or instead of having an hour meeting with people, I was able to record a 5 or 10 minutes Loom video, shared it with everyone, tell them, go look over there. Do we need a meeting or not? And they're like, this was the most... the best 5 minutes are of our week, because we save so much time, right?
That's right.
But Loom is just one example of that. It doesn't have to be Loom. You can just record a video using Zoom. You can record a video with other many tools. The idea there is really a video, as an async communication way. I've done also as a product manager. I've done in the past one of the things I like to do is that when a developer develops something, to give me a demo of what they developed before it even goes to QA or merged or whatever. Because I tend to find things that they may not have understand about the story, and we can negotiate it and whatever, and it's not as late as when the story is done. So I never wait for the demo at the end of the sprint, because for me it's too late already. The story is done. I want to do it as early as possible. So in the past, I would do it mostly in a sync way on a video call or in person in the office. But recently I started doing it with videos. I asked the developer to record a video of what they've done, and then they will attach it to the Jira ticket. And so not only me, but other people can also see it later. And then I would review it, and then I will give them comment about the things that I like or don't like or whatever. And if everything was perfect, I will say, perfect, I'm good with that, right? So there is a lot of ways that we can use async communication. And because it's async, there is some written stuff or videos, or there's something tangible that can be saved for later for other people to review.
One last point I had is I was using a tool, and I'm blanking on the name of it, but it was embedded within an application, and the customers could screen grab the issue. They could record the issue, type up their notes, send this off to this application. We could review it and then push it off to Jira. So I'll have to look up the name of it, but it was very helpful because the customer was giving us instant feedback on the application, and we were able to look at it real time without actually having to do those kind of interviews and stuff. Take their time up. So
perfect. So I'm looking forward to this series, although it's probably not going to cover all the tools we talked about today, but it will cover some of them. For our audience, if you have any comments or any other tools that you think we should cover, either in this series or other, please let us know. We're always happy to talk with our listeners and learn and improve.
Sounds good. We're looking forward to it. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Moshe. We'll talk to everybody soon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you to all the listeners. We really appreciate the feedback and support. Please leave us a review to help others find the show on Apple or Spotify or anywhere else you're listening to the show.